Thank you, Madam Chairman. I think it would have been helpful if we could have had somebody who knows about this system that's been proposed, or even a statement from them would have been very helpful. There are a number of these units around now, and there will be people, DEFRA or probably a farmer somewhere who runs them, could give us some technical information which we've been lacking. It would help the residents, and it certainly would help this committee. This type of development was developed in Denmark, where pigs live in extremely close proximity to humans. It is supposed to be odorless. I haven't been around it myself, so I couldn't say any more at that point. But I do know it's used a lot in Holland and Belgium, where they have big, a huge number of pigs. And it's stored below ground. The trouble with the ones above ground, you have to keep moving the stuff, or else it goes solid. And every time you move it, there's a lot of smell. Now, it's not a very nice smell, everybody would agree there. And also, you'd get a huge smell when it was being spread. Especially if the weather conditions weren't right. Whereas this system virtually eliminates all smell, because it's taken by a pipe from the shed, or the tank below the shed, straight to a tractor that's pulling the contraption around the field, and it's injected. And it's got a juggle bar on it as well. It's very strictly controlled is when slurry can be put onto land. It is in periods when the grass is growing that is fastest. It isn't allowed to be put on, it's illegal. There's some huge fines put on at other times of the year. You can't put it on in winter at all, because of high rainfall or frosty conditions, and you aren't allowed to put on in midsummer, such as now. So you put on the 2 times. Grass grows, maybe don't realise it, but grass does grow quite fast in September. And so it is put on at the 2 times a year. And they have to have a tank below the shed that is sufficient for 6 months. There's no excuses, it has to hold 6 months slurry. DEFRA do monitor this extremely well. When there was somebody mentioned they'll probably go up to a 2,000 big unit. Well, that all depends. And it depends on the amount of nutrients that the soil need. And they can be calculated, they know exactly what they're doing, how much nutrients per acre, per square metre, and it will not be allowed to put more than that on. And this 1,000 unit probably serves the need for the 160 acres. I think I've talked long enough actually, but I do think it might be helpful to have an expert or somebody who knows the system to inform us of the technicalities. But I second the proposal that our chairman has given, and we'll go from there. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Lodeman. I've got a whole load of speakers now. I've got Councillors World, Dawson, Mullen, Blackie, Browsville and Duff. So Councillor World next. Yeah. Councillor World.
Thanks, Chair. I'm very happy for it to be deferred, but could we please have a different venue for our next meeting. It's far too hot in here, far too crowded. And I would suggest that Colburn Primary School might be useful. Now, pigs on the farm. Have there been pigs on the farm? Some say yes, some say no. Is it a replacement or is it new? I'd like to know. The buildings. I thought I heard it said there's no building there and you were looking at open land. So how can it be a replacement if there is nothing there? Our scientific officer said 270 metres from the nearest building. Mr. Taylor quoted 350 metres.
The other way round.
I'm sorry. And anyway, there's 80 metres difference. I'm sorry about that. Could we have it measured again, please, before our next meeting? Because I think that is very important indeed. And on that, thank you very much.
Shall I do that on now? Because I suspect I might have a long list or forget them, Chair. Just in terms of one or two of the specifics there, the distances are set out in the report. They're obviously more accurately measured in north-south, sorry, to the west, to the east and to the south. We've also sought to deal with the point of replacement or not replacement in there. It's a new unit. But you know, the issues are the same. So you know, we know what it is.
Thank you very much. I've got Councillor Dawson next. Good evening, Councillor Dawson.
Good evening, Chairman. I've gone through the report. There's no mention of what size the slurry tank will be and how they aim to disperse the smell. I mean, at the moment it's down to 3,000 litres, 1,500 litres for the ordinary water tank. There's no mention for the slurry tank. And if we're going to increase big amounts later on just to get permission, we're going to have to put a bigger tank instead. So can we have an answer on that?
I'm just going to make a note of that one, Chair, and make sure we've got that.
We'll get back to you on that one. We'll just carry on a little while. Councillor McMullen next.
That's quick.
Do that.
Mr. Featherstone, would you just... Mr. Featherstone?
He's just he is listening.
Sorry,
Would you just go back to your first slide, please? The very first one, that one, yes. It just strikes me that it's the right thing in the wrong place. Because it is surrounded. I'm just not comfortable of where it's sitting. If it was out in the open field somewhere, I think that would be fine. But just looking at that first slide that you showed, it's just not right. It's a horseshoe of houses with this pig farm in the middle. I'm not presently comfortable with it.
Let's see if you get a round of applause. Again.
There's a couple of points, but I leave them to one side because it's clear we're going to defer. I'm glad you've actually called for that slide, Councillor McMullen, because I was going to call for it as well, actually. Is there one following that one? Could you show the one following that one? No, go back to the one that we had, please. Thank you. Sorry. I need to explain to the audience, to the committee, if there's any doubt. If you're the county councillor for the Upper Dales, up in Swelldale and Wensleydale, you have to be a very strong supporter of farming, and I am a very strong supporter of farming up there. But then in Upper Swelldale, 35% of my people up there are engaged in farming, and in Upper Wensleydale, 25%. I suspect the same percentages don't apply in Colburn. If this application came forward in the Upper Dales, where the term supersparsity applies, where there's less than one person in 2.5 acres, then there wouldn't be a large audience as there is today, because frankly the countryside can take it, and the countryside is used to taking it. That's what the Dales is all about, is it not? However, supersparsity does not actually apply to the community of Colburn, as you can see with that illustration there. Not only does it not apply today, when the growth plans that are planned for that community are finished, it certainly won't apply then either, I can assure you. We have a great expectation and reliance on Colburn to actually take much of the growth that we plan here in Richmondshire. And I have to say, Madam Chairman, it's to the eternal credit of the people in Colburn that they've accepted those plans, generally speaking, without cause for complaint, without great shout in the odds. And so when suddenly they do, we do need to sit up and take notice, and I certainly am. That community has planned to have another 1,900 houses, or 1,900 are on their way. There's even plans for the old recreation ground, as you possibly have heard as well, which has come forward in addition to those numbers. Over the years, and I've been involved, we've had tremendous office and workspace development at the Colburn Business Park. There's more there to come at Walkerville. We've had a secondary town centre suggested down near, is it Aldi or Lidl, where the old, near Walkerville there. We are now talking about investing in the road so that the traffic will increase, and Catterick Phase 2, not the word in it, is coming forward as well. That's a huge amount of activity, a huge amount of growth, and it's all associated with urbanisation. It is certainly not associated with deeply rural. And so I really am very concerned indeed about this application, despite, as I say, strong supporter of farming. Asking the community to take all of that, and they have, basically without complaint, and then saying, oh, by the way, if a planning decision is taken which goes astray here, by the way, when you go out in the garden to have a rest from all the growth, all the traffic, you're going to have a stinky poo many times throughout the year. It's not something I feel very comfortable with either, Councillor McMullen. And then when the environmental health officer, and be fair, she's got a job to do, she comes along and she says there will be smell, there will be flies, there's issues around slurry spread, there's no odour plan being put forward yet, there's no disaster recovery, suddenly the place is absolutely stinking and there's nothing worse, I can assure you. You're well within the 400 metres that used to be the limit. And by the way, how many people from the Environmental Health Unit or from the Environment Agency live within 250 metres of a pig raising depot? The community are up in arms, and in my view, rightly so, and we must take notice here. We are a council that is very strong on our local community connections. Basically, what I see in the eyes of people there are fear that if it's in place and then things go astray, they're completely trapped then in houses in a community that frankly they can't be proud of, because actually every day it's a burden walking out and about in it. And when the head teacher then puts down in writing his concerns, head teachers tend to actually keep a low profile. He's made very clear his concerns. Colburn Primary School is an excellent school, one of our beacon schools at the County Council. Right, we'll defer it because we're fair, and we must see if the applicant can do a great deal to actually address the concerns. My own personal consideration is that this is heading for refusal, and if there isn't a major major wind shift in how we're going to deal with all of these issues, I think it should be refused. But I'll go with deferral tonight.
Could I just say to members of the public, it's very kind of you to applaud councillors, but you have to be terribly careful it doesn't go to the head. So can you perhaps not be so enthusiastic with your applause?